here on The Form, and as always, a big afternoon of racing. Let's have a look at what's on the agenda. We've got a Woodville gallops preview with Bevan Sweeney. We then head to the greyhounds. Pip Morris gives us her bet at Cambridge. Sydney trainer Adrian Bott links in with us from across the ditch. We've also got Justin Evans to talk through the Windham harness, and of course the bit you've been waiting for, best bets, to wrap up the show. Well, let's start the form this morning with a gallops preview, and we do have obviously that meeting coming in from Woodville this afternoon, and therefore we've called in Bevan Sweeney to preview those races. Tell us about the program, Bevan.
It's a true midweek program, Emily. There's no real standouts or horses that I'm really enthused about going forward as a three-year-old into the season upcoming. Woodville doesn't have irrigation, so the track conditions are in that slow range at the present moment. There has been a bit of rain around down here in the bottom of the North Island over the last 24, 48 hours. So I don't think the track's going to improve massively, but I still think there's that general improvement in track conditions that we've seen over the last couple of weeks or so. So, yeah, there's no real standouts on the program tomorrow or today, Em, but look, we'll find you one, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully you will. 8 races, start times 12:24. What's your best bet, Bevan?
I'm going to head to one of the smaller fields, Emily. Race number 2 on the program. It is the 65 over the 1,200 metres. There's a horse here called Tango Love for Matt Dixon. Now, was very close up at Waverley behind a very good horse for Trudy Keegan, who had a great day on Saturday, called Winston, big strong horse. Only beaten 0.3 of a length. Prior to that, I thought it was really unlucky at Wanganui on a heavy 11. Small field, drawn a nice gate, generally sits somewhere close to speed. I think Tango Love, race number 2, is a very good bet. There's a couple of last up winners in there, Pull No Punches and Smart Arc, but this horse's trial behind Kepanos was good recently at Foxbridge. So I do think it has a very good chance in race number 2 on the program.
And what about something at a little bit more value?
Race number 5 on the program. This is the maiden 1,600 metre event, and there's a horse here for Raymond Connors. And if you follow his projection with his horses, they generally start over a shorter distance, they run home quite nicely, and you sort of pick them up into the 1,600 metres and further bracket. He's got one here called Kiwi to the Bone by Adelante out of Dominique, who is a Zabeel Amir. Now, this horse flew home at Hawara on the dead 6 conditions, the first real better track that we've seen in the Central Districts in recent times. So not going to see completely similar track conditions, but it had a run on a heavy 11, and it handled that nicely behind a nice horse called Hooks, who was a winner on debut for Rochelle Lockett. Now, it was back wide at Hawara over the 1,400 metres. It absolutely flew home to get within a length of Lord Esperanza. So profile-wise, with a Raymond Connors runner up to 1,600 metres, he's patient with his horses. It finished off nicely 14, so I think the 1,600 metres should be right up its alley. So I do like its chances in race number 5, which will be the first leg of the late Quadivia today.
Awesome stuff, Bevan. Obviously, it's a pretty exciting time of year. We had a taste of what's to come with the Foxbridge Plate last Saturday. And of course, it's not too far away from that first day of spring racing at Hawke's Bay. And what did you take away from that Foxbridge Plate? Because it's certainly a race that's changed complexion.
What it did, Emily, was really open up the race, didn't it? Because in previous runnings of this race in recent times, Tiaki will come into the race with the short price favourite and dominant runner in this particular race. We thought Avantage was going to be that horse going into next Saturday. However, the performance on Saturday, well, it was disappointing to the eye. I know the horse was caught wide in the running, but she has much more attitude than that generally, and she was just a little bit disappointing late in that race. And you throw in Tavi Mack, who we thought was a massive challenger. Maybe he was down in the worst of the ground, but he never really fired up in the run for line either. So those two well-specced runners in the first start of the Bay, really disappointing on Saturday. And then we saw some exceptional performances. Mascarpone, it was a great ride by Ryan. He held Avantage out wide, and that was probably the key to him winning that particular race. But Gino Severini sectionally was outstanding when I went back through those this morning. You've got Harlett, who's back, and obviously back in some pretty good nick on that performance. You've got, wow, Emily, I don't know what you made about Ocean Billy, but imagine there was a few tickets put on in the Melbourne Cup, because he can stay and he's got to turn a foot, and that's what's required to win a Melbourne Cup. So Billy Palmieri must have been really happy with him coming out of that race, of course, transferring over to Chris Wallace very, very shortly. And then we've got a couple of unknowns. Catalyst, I rewatched his recent trial again just the other day, Emily, and he won well, but he had to get asked a fraction. So he's going well, but I don't think he's quite at what we've seen in Hawke's Bay Carnival's prior, but he certainly is an X Factor horse. We've got Dragon Leap, who I think every trackside person in the north is on with the O'Sullivan and Scott team. He's new to the race. And of course, we have last year's winner, Call Sign Mab, to line up as well. So we're not having a $1.80 shot this year. I think the race is a lot more open. Those two good horses, you can forgive them one, can't you, for sure? So Avantage, Tabby Mac, I do expect them to perform better than what they did in the Foxbridge, but yeah, it's just much more of an open race, and that just adds a different edge. We've been going to the races to see a champion go round over the last couple of years, and the right results has happened. I think this year we've got a much more open race, which will encourage just those people looking for a bit of value further down in the field. But look, I can't wait for the first day of the bar. It's been a tough old time for us down here, tougher for you guys in the north, clearly. But it'll be great to get on track and see all those spring horses hitting the tracks for the first time the second time, but the first time in the big Group 1 this season.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And well, it's a little over a week away, isn't it? So the countdown is on to that Hawke's Bay Spring Carnival. Thanks for your insight, Bevan. Looking forward to catching up with you next week.
Thank you.
Let's get into some greyhound form on the show. Pip Morris joins us. And Pip, great to have you with us. Tell us about the meeting at Cambridge today.
Yeah, 10 race program, Emily, really looking forward to it. Karen Walsh has quite a few short price favourites again, and look, she's been dominating so far. Bonus back 2 in races 1 and 2. She's got Thrilling Sniper kicking off in the first, who I think is a good way to play that race. He can be a little bit slower way, so look, you could just have that bonus back on him in case he gets second, third or fourth. And again in race 2, look, overtaking was really nice, winner fresh up, but he can be hit or miss, so a nice race to play that bonus back in.
What have you got as your best bet today?
I've gone for a race number 9, the one Sakichi for Peter Ferguson. Again, his team's been firing. I think his kennel mate in there, Chase Me Down, is probably the main danger, but he comes up with box number 1, and I think he can go one better than last start.
And a value?
I've come up with the Beret Girl, and look, I made her the best bet on Thursday, and to be fair to her, she was a little bit luckless. Still quite a strong field. She's drawn box number 8, so a little bit risky from there, but I think she'll be valued. She's better than what she's been racing, and look, I think she can bounce back.
Awesome stuff, Pip. Thanks. Not only the Cambridge Greyhounds, but of course Addington as well. Make sure you tune into TAB Trackside for that. So on the form this morning, we're joined by Adrian Bott, who's very kindly linked in from across the ditch. And Adrian, a really big weekend, of course, with the Run to the Rose, the Group 2, now being run at Kembla Grange. You've got a couple of really nice chances, but I think Converge is probably the one that people are really excited to see back. What's he been up to since, of course, that really successful carnival in Queensland?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Great to be on the show. Yeah, exciting to see him back at the races. He had a relatively short turnaround off his Queensland preparation, just kept him up there to spell over the winter, which he, it was fabulous for him. He came back in really good condition, and certainly carried an element of that residual fitness, which will help him there first up. He's had two trials leading into Saturday's race. First one was sort of a relatively quiet trial, and the second one just gave him a bit more of a test there. And I must say, he sort of surprised me a bit how sharp he was in that trial. I guess sort of testing him back over 1,200 metres, naturally sort of feel it's going to be well short of his best against obviously very talented opposition, and a couple have already had the runs this preparation, so it'll be a good test for him. But I guess he sort of showed great improvement, remarkable improvement throughout the last preparation. So certainly feel we're dealing with a more seasoned horse this time round, and he might be capable there first up.
That's an interesting point as well, isn't it? Because it did sort of take him to the end of that 2-year-old season to really sort of crank up. What have you noticed a difference between the 2- and 3-year-old campaigns? Has he come back stronger and maybe more improved?
Look, I think certainly just probably more improved in, just sort of the natural race improvement that he took throughout the preparation. As you said, I think naturally we learnt how to ride him a little bit better. He sort of got stronger throughout the prep, and certainly got a bit fitter. We had him sort of pretty underdone there early days, because Queensland was always the intention to go through. So we snuck an extra couple of runs in there over the carnival to take advantage of. But physically, he probably hasn't grown a whole lot, but he sort of might be going around the races, hopefully sort of 10, 15 kilos heavier this preparation. So just sort of strengthened up a bit. But he's never won for the yard watchers. He's not an overly sort of impressive type physically, and I've sort of given up trying to work him out either. So it's sort of very hard to get a line on him in that sense. But he seems very well in himself, and he's trialled up nicely. So got to take a lot of confidence in that. But I think a big key was certainly just sort of learning how he should be ridden, just sort of playing to his strengths and sort of working that out over his preparation.
And as we head towards that run to the Rose, he does obviously meet a really competitive field. What would you be impressed with? Obviously, a win is what everyone wants, but it's the start of a campaign. So what are you expecting from him?
Yeah, look, naturally, as I said, I thought they may just be a bit sharp for him there first up over the 1200. Obviously now with his sort of pattern as well, sort of getting back and running on, just sort of like to see him sort of really strong through the line, and a race that will, have him prepared, nicely for the Golden Rose, which is obviously sort of a main target in a fortnight's time, where, obviously, I'd like to be winning the Group 1 with him. But the 1400 metres, you'd think naturally is probably where he's better placed. So, I think he's vulnerable there first up. If he can win, well, obviously sort of it's very exciting for him going forward. But just want to see him naturally competitive against, this grade of horses, and sort of taking that level that we saw through the winter campaign, and showing that it's, he's still able to carry that through against this grade.
The Golden Rose is pretty close on the horizon, but I noticed a few other nominations for the Epsom, the Caulfield Guineas, the Cox Plate. Post the Golden Rose, all being well, where would you like to head with him?
Yeah, so I think the Golden Rose is sort of really going to tell us exactly where we're at with him. Obviously, if you can win that, or sort of go close, or you'd naturally think that the path down to the Guineas would be the right way to go, and that obviously opens up the potential for a Cox Plate. The gut feeling is that he should improve as he steps out in trip. Obviously, we've seen him at the mile, but I do feel he can be effective up to the 2,000 metres. And the 3-year-old's got a great record in that race, and the Guineas and Cox Plate, just two races. Love to have a horse being able to contest, and obviously, look, we don't necessarily have any value to be protecting there. He's going to be ready to roll, and happily show up at all of them if he can, and he's fit and ready to do so. So that's the path that we'll take at the moment. But look, as I said, if he shows he's not quite up to it in the run to the Rose, the Golden Rose, we'll stay in Sydney, just keep to his own age group, and there's a nice path through, potentially to a race like the Spring Champion that we can also follow as well.
We can't talk about the run to the Rose without mentioning your other contender in the Congo, who of course does have the benefit of that run last time. That was a win in the San Domenico. How would you compare the two horses, and what are you expecting from him?
Yeah, no, glad we're mentioning him, because he's probably more suited to this particular race under the conditions. Just his natural racing pattern, and sort of having had that couple of runs this preparation, and also sort of bringing through some residual fitness from the winter. He's got great tactical speed, so a race, if there is sort of lacking of speed, well, he'll be there to be able to sort of take it up. And we saw last start there in the San Domenico, he's awfully hard to get past. They were sort of lining up, they're challenging him, and he sort of kept fighting them off. So there's no reason he can't be running a very similar sort of type of race to that. He's very well in himself, and he's certainly taken a lot of confidence from that win, and you just got to love that sort of toughness about him. So I think he's there to run another bold race.
Exciting stuff. It's a pretty busy day for the team, isn't it? Because there's a number of other contenders on the card. I thought we'd run through them, maybe get a comment from you on each of them. In that 3-year-old maiden plate, you've got Consensio. Tell us about this one.
He's done deal gelding, bred to get over a bit of a trip, just having his first outing. Likely need the experience, and certainly going to need a bit further.
And you've got Discharged and Embracer in the Theo Marks over the 1300.
Yeah, I really like both these horses going there. I think Discharging for a nice preparation, but likely to need a bit further. Embracer, I thought, was excellent there last start. Just been sort of trying to stretch him out past the 1200 metres, which feel he'll be able to do so. Sort of ridden the right way. He's got an excellent sort of turn of foot if he can settle in his races, and he's doing it that way now as a gelding. He's going about it the right way. So I certainly feel he's taking good improvement from his last start.
The Sheriko Evangelic.
She's a nice sharp type. She's much better than probably what her form may suggest. She's sort of able to find a couple of excuses and a bit unlucky not to have won a big race by now, I feel. That said, first up last preparation, she was, she took plenty of improvement off that run and improved sharply second up. So I see her following a similar sort of pattern this preparation.
And then finally, obviously in the Dulcify over the 1500 metres, you've got a Kiwi bred in there, I noticed, and also Silent Impact.
Yeah, very nice Kiwi bred. In fact, he's a lovely horse. Went into his first two runs with a lot of upside, and I think he's sort of really taken that good improvement. I think he's a lovely horse in the making. Got a great attitude about him. Physically, he's sort of really come on for those couple of runs. So great attitude, puts himself on pace. He'll be tough and he'll be strong in the finish there. And hopefully we can see a bit more from him going forward over the carnival. Silent Impact's he's a lovely horse going forward as well. He's sort of won 2 races very impressively, sort of unsuitable conditions. The form out of that most recent win has been very good. Number of sort of winners and even sort of stakes winners come out from behind him, and he was very sort of quite soft on that day in how he won. But I guess he had a while between runs. He has been back to barrier trials, so he's sort of resuming here over the 1500 metres against a few horses that are pretty race fit. So he's unfortunately got that against him, but I think a lovely horse going forward.
Do you have a best bet of the day for us at Kembla Grange? Who do you think could be putting their hand up?
You threw me on the spot. You've got a lovely team. With the heart or the head. No, look, I do like I do like Embracer going forward. I thought his last start run was excellent.
And what about a horse from the yard maybe that we can follow over the Spring Carnival?
Yeah, I think we'll stick with another New Zealand bred horse here. Horse of Alan Galbraith, horse called Riadini. He ran last start in the Chelmsford last Saturday. Was narrowly beaten. I guess he was poorly weighted under the weight for age conditions, but he certainly sort of sparked back to form at the right time. So we're going to set him for the Epsom, which he ran 3rd in last year after sort of coming over from New Zealand. So when he drops back to handicap conditions, he'll meet those horses much better at the weights. And I think that's sort of a nice race to follow him towards. I'd love dearly to get a nice win for Alan.
Awesome stuff. Thanks so much for your time, Adrian. Great insight, and I love the Kiwi bred as the horse to follow. I'm sure lots of fans who will be pretty chuffed with that.
Thanks very much, Emily.
Time to cover off our harness action, and we do have the 2 meetings this afternoon. Of course, we've got the Cambridge harness later on this evening, 9 races starting at 5:39 p.m, and the other one is Windham. 9 races there also, with the first of the day at 12:06. We've recruited Justin Evans to have a chat through all about the contenders on the programme. And Justin, what have we got to look forward to this afternoon?
Yeah, Emily, hi to you and hi to all the viewers. Really looking forward to calling the card. Beautiful track for anybody. It's been at Windham, the Young Quinn Raceway, of course, picturesque racing and real heartland harness racing. So looking forward to the meeting. 9-race card. To be fair, I don't think anything will be winning 2 outside of the market. I think we'll be playing the sharp end of the market most of the day. Probably 2 or 3 sort of legitimate winning chances in each race, but that would be about it. So I don't think we'll see anything winning at big odds. Look, before we get into the tipping for the day, a couple of horses to look out for, Emily. Certainly he will be hard in the market. Major Sweetheart, who's a first upper by Art Major, really talented filly for Craig Ferguson. I think race 3 she goes around, and she's on debut. She's looked very good at the trials, and even just last week coming home at a 27-7 quarter at Ascot Park to get up in dead heat with a race rival, actually. But be looking forward to her go around for a while. And a very smart trotter, Emily, Simone Lindeni, who's got the breeding. She's a half to a Group 1 winner, Showgate, with Brad Williamson. She's been patiently handled. 1 start, 1 win. she resumes here at this meeting. And but yeah, interesting to see what she does. She's a pretty good talent. But look, we have found a couple to have a little play with, and we'll try and book it in the card, Emily. Race 1 and race 9. So the first and last, hopefully we can get them both home. Look at the first, I think, In the Groove, who has been tried for a little while, very consistent, knocking on the door. He's been been going really close over recent times, and I think somebody will answer that door this week, Emily. He went super last week, I thought, running second in a strong gold chip final at Ascot Park. Look, I think it's a race that he should be winning. There's a couple of dangers, but they've got questions on their head in terms of manners. So I think he's the safest option. I think he's got the best form, and he's got a very much informed driver, Brent Barclay. So it all makes sense to me. I think this is In the Groove's day. So he's a good way to kick off the betting. And Emily, the last of the day, we'll make this our best. I think hopefully we won't need it too much by the lucky last, but I think it will be the lucky last for number 1, Sneaker Peak, who is just a wonderfully consistent mare. She has been super over recent times. Big sectionals that entered last week, storming home from last on the turn, got up and ran 4th. Actually peeled off a horse's back called Art Attack, went past it. Art Attack won just a few days later at the Ashburton meeting. She's flying, Sneaker Peak. She's drawn 1 in the last. She's a mare with a bit of gate speed, probably best following a helmet, I think. Matthew Williamson knows her well. I think he'll be looking for a horse to trail. If she's trailing on the turn, look out for her up the passing lane. I think she'll be winning the last. So, look, a couple of pretty good plays there, Emily. I think In the Groove and Sneaker Peak. As I say, I think we'll be playing in the market throughout the day. There'll be favourites winning, and most of the day, 2 or 3 decent winning chances. So obviously across the day, we'll be doing our best to push the punters the right way. But that's how we saw it. Really looking forward to the card.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks for that, Justin. As you said, first of the day, 12:06 if you're wanting to tune in to the Windham Harness. Well, that's it for our interviews, so let's get into our best bets and recap what the team are liking. A big thanks to everybody on the show today. We'll be back tomorrow for more in-depth analysis, but until then, a very good morning.